Out of former Kai 2 million Sky Train project trial na kwaya semi be court to me the update ni nyina bro right from Supreme Court out of former the update ni nyina bro e Ghanatube for dimechi ne akwaje sa update we nyina e Ghanatube haya emragisia.
Questions emerge after the Attorney General filed witness statements that reveal 3 former board members of the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund deny approving the scandalous SkyTrain project or payment for the same. You recall that the former CEO, Solomon Asamoah, and former board chair, Professor Christopher Ameyawe-Kumfi, are both standing trial for willfully causing financial loss to the state after some $2 million was paid or spent for no work done. My producer Dennis has been combing through those witness statements with the proverbial fine-tooth comb, getting us every detail from there. He's joining me here in the studio with all that he has learned from the witness statement. Dennis, good evening to you. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
It's good to see you again.
Good to see you too.
I like how that came out.
Yeah.
A good retort. But, I mean, what are you learning from those witness statements?
Well, so 3 more witnesses are testifying in this matter. We have already seen one witness who is the lead investigator, a staff of the NIB who is also looking into the whole transaction and will be testifying in this particular matter. What we are learning tonight is that 3 persons who form part of the 9-member board, former board of the GIIF are also testifying against these 2 in this particular matter. And like you rightly mentioned, they are charged for willful causing financial loss to the state and intentional dissipation of public funds in respect of some $2 million that was paid in respect of a Sky Train project that never was. For which reason they are now held accountable for that. So this is Francis Abaji. He is the lead investigator in this particular matter, and like we indicated earlier before in this program, I mean, his area of testimony basically is going to be on matters that include interviews that he's conducted, also documents that he's reviewed, and also accounts verification. All these are matters that relate to the transaction. So that is his area of testimony. Now we are also learning that one Yvonne Sowah, who was a board member of the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund between 2019 and 2021.
2017.
Sorry, 2017 and 2021. That's the time span within which this transaction is purported to have taken place, for which reason they are standing, the 2 are standing trial. And that her area of testimony is going to be in respect of some documents, in respect of the train transactions, whether they were submitted to the board for approval or not. Because remember, part of the allegation is that even though this money was paid, there was no board approval for such an amount of money to be paid. So the question arises as to whether
Or kai say eye Ghana hasi in some bebre na ekoso Ghana hasi concerning eye Sky Train, $2 million Sky Train project. Eye Professor Ameyawe-Kumfi and other people be omoko bon mu ate say ekwe deja e wo court ate say yetwe amount for seni abasa Jesse Professor Ameyawe-Kumfi kra na say ebedu time na also kopi mo court ni kra na say ne ho fa no and the doctors for the letter by saying na ne ho fa no to member court ne ho nsem bebre ama Jesse Ghana fu say Ghana fu nyina ka say hey 2 million Sky Train project no Jesse sisi an nsem no ayetwema mentwe pa e wo court Just update ni na by see and 3 witnesses abeka one also mo testify just say Professor Ameyawe-Kumfi ene nkofo mienu abeka one ye say sa sika $2 million dollars no just say board no GIIF board na nkasa omo ntumi approve sa sika no enti just say witnesses ne 3 no also mo testify or court just say nsem na rija me so meji ni nyina brew e wo Ghanatube of other for my court na yan ko just nsem mo nyina nchemu esa Ababio.
Whether indeed there were even documents that were submitted to the board backing this whole transaction. So her testimony will be on matters like that. She will also be speaking to matters that also border on whether the board actually approved the funds or the money that was paid. That's the $2 million in that transaction. There's also one Nana Efua Chewa Ababio. She's also a board member, also within the same period of time, 2017 and 2020. She is a banker by profession, and her area of testimony in this particular matter also relates to whether indeed there was even a formal request from the management of the GIIF. Now, the management will be the entity that is controlled by Solomon Asamoah, who is the chief executive officer, to the investment committee. So there's a subcommittee of the board that looks into investment matters for which this transaction should have come to them. So she'll be testifying in respect of whether or not there was even a formal request in respect of that transaction before the subcommittee, for the subcommittee to consider. And if there was a recommendation from that subcommittee to the full board for it to approve, because if there was a matter that was brought to the subcommittee, the expectation is that after their work, they will make some recommendations to the full board. She also testified in respect of those matters. And also, the last part of her testimony would be whether, even if there was an official or formal presentation, whether there was a proposal or whether there was even a resolution that was brought before the full board for such a decision to be made in respect of the $2 billion transaction that we are now learning has gone bad. And also, she also testified as to whether this transaction had the board approval in relation to the disbursements of the funds. For the fact that they are all board members, it does appear that their transactions, their testimonies will seem similar, except in some instances, others will just testify as to whether the money was paid or there was an approval, and others will testify even beyond that to go into matters of subcommittee and all that. So, Cecilia Gabra, also a former board member, between the same period of time, her area of testimony also on the question of whether the board approved any funding for the Sky Train. So, moving forward, these we now know are 4 witnesses that the Attorney General will put before the court to testify in these matters. That's to say, if the Attorney General does not file any further witness statements. We have seen 4 so far in respect of this particular matter. The details are on 3news.com.
Oh, come on. Come on. You're giving us the details tonight. Right here. We won't go to 3news.com.
There's a lot more on 3news.com.
That's what wickedness looks like. But no. But on a more serious note,
Yes.
right? What are some of the responses they have given to the questions that have been asked as to whether or not an approval was given?
Yes.
For the project itself, whether or not the subcommittee's view was sought for the project, whether or not presentations were done to the subcommittee, and whether or not there was an approval also for the payment for whatever beginning works that $2 million was supposed to go into.
Okay, so the generality of what they've been saying basically is to the effect that they are unaware that such documents came before them as board members to have received any approval for such a transaction to carry on. So that's just the general picture that they seem to be saying when it comes to their testimony. So, basically, that's what I guess.
But I one last question, and then we'll take a quick break and come back and look at a rather another important topic on corruption, right?
Yeah.
How does this support the prosecution's case?
So when you look at it now, prosecution would largely rely on the testimony of the lead investigator, that's Francis Abuaji, who has been detailing the nature of the transaction. And the key allegation in here is the fact that the money that has been paid was money that was not approved by the board. So if you have quite a number of the board members, but let's also see, these board members who are testifying are only 3 of 9. In this case, those who are standing trial are the board chair and the CEO, who are also part of the board members. And mind you, they say that that money was approved. So clearly, the one who says that it was not approved would need to show that indeed it was not approved. So it's a burden on them to show that indeed what they are saying is what it is.
Anyway, Dennis, thank you so much.
Other for what's in seminar course, yes, say a $2 million SkyTrain project, yes, say board no approve. Ebimu say board no almost nipa 9 form a board no na nipa 9 form a board no yes say ebimu say board na approve ebimu say ayin board na approve nti san sem we nyina na kwa edija o court witnesses ni nyina e kwa testify o court as to whether no crese board na approve $2 million no ana say board na approve e no mo chese sa sika ni nyina kwa edija chese fahiu e na chese professor Meya Kumfi ni ho akwa ba asem dendenden a ye twe ne sire ni abasa okota me so meji ni nyina bre e wo Ghanatube do for man ko na ye ntwa ansem no so mragisia.
Much. You almost left us on a cliffhanger because I was enjoying the storytelling.
Typically, we have all the details on 3news.com because that's where you find the document.
Please don't do cliffhangers. Thank you so much. Dennis Poberi is my producer here.
Always a pleasure, Kim.
Indeed, on Ghana Tonight. We'll take our very first break, but when we come back, we'll talk about why the African Union Advisory Board is recommending bold and systemic reforms to the president as part of efforts to combat corruption. Very interesting positions from the special prosecutor and the vice president of the republic, Professor Nana Jane Opukwa-Jiman. We'll also take you to Takoradi, where that rather tragic accident killed a young father. We'll get the details of how all of that happened. Don't go away.
Truck at the scene. He was on board the trustee seat, and where the
also is very
got towards it's a surprise to many.
Adofo we ne ensem a edija o Ghana ha me so meje ni nyina brew e wo Ghanatube of mama December like na ma subscribe na ma share na ma hit notification bell no so amai se na be abini abibie drop e content a wo nya ne tempa na hwe no witi amai disi ade me de mu nyina besia makra mu nyina me da mu nyina ase.